Welcome back to Coastal Conversations, a podcast designed for upper intermediate and advanced English learners who want to strengthen listening skills through meaningful, real-world topics. I'm your host, Susan. In today's episode, we're exploring a topic that affects nearly everyone at some point in life: motivation versus discipline. Why do some people continue making progress even when they don't feel inspired? Why do others start strong but struggle to remain consistent over time? And perhaps most importantly, is motivation really the key to success, or is something else more important? This is a topic I've thought about deeply over the years, not only as a teacher, but also through experiences in music, athletics, homeschooling, and language learning. One thing I've noticed is that people often romanticize motivation. We love the feeling of being inspired. Motivation feels exciting. It gives us energy. It creates momentum. It makes us believe we can completely transform our lives overnight. But motivation is also emotional, and emotions change constantly. Some days we feel focused and energized and productive. Other days we feel tired or distracted, discouraged, or overwhelmed even. And that's where many people run into difficulty. Because if your progress depends entirely on motivation, then your progress becomes unstable. This is especially true today because social media has created the illusion that successful people are always motivated. We constantly see those videos about waking up at 5 a.m., the perfect routines, nonstop productivity from sunup to sundown, intense workouts, and highly structured lifestyles. But what we often don't see are the difficult days behind the scenes. We don't see exhaustion. We don't see frustration. We don't see the days when someone continues simply because they've built discipline, not because they feel inspired. And I think this creates unrealistic expectations, especially for young people. Many begin to believe that if they aren't constantly motivated, something must be wrong. But in reality, inconsistency in emotion is completely normal. Discipline becomes important because it allows us to continue even when motivation fades. Now, discipline is often misunderstood. People sometimes associate discipline with punishment or extreme self-control. But I don't think healthy discipline is about being harsh with yourself. I think discipline is more about creating structure. It's the ability to continue taking small steps forward, even when you don't feel particularly motivated that day. And in many ways, discipline creates freedom. For example, when musicians practice consistently, they eventually gain the freedom to play more confidently and creatively. When athletes train consistently, they develop strength, endurance, and skill. When language learners practice regularly, communication gradually becomes more natural and automatic. But none of these things happen instantly. As someone who studied music for many years, I learned early that progress is rarely dramatic from day to day. A musician may practice scales and technical exercises hundreds, even thousands of times before seeing noticeable improvement. The same is true in athletics. My kids and I have spent much time in competitive sports environments. All 5 of my children have competed at an elite level in swimming, and one thing becomes very clear very quickly. The athletes who improve the most are not always the most talented. Often, they are simply the most consistent. They continue showing up, even on difficult days, even when progress feels slow. And I believe this principle applies to almost every area of life. Language learning is another perfect example. Many learners feel highly motivated when they first begin studying English. Everything feels exciting and new, but after a while, progress can start to feel slower. Mistakes become frustrating. Confidence may decrease. And this is often the point where discipline matters more than motivation, because long-term improvement usually comes from sustainable habits rather than emotional intensity. In fact, relying too heavily on motivation can sometimes lead to burnout. Burnout happens when people push themselves too intensely for too long without enough balance or recovery. This is another issue we don't talk enough about. There's a popular idea online that success requires constant hustle and nonstop productivity. But human beings are not machines. Rest matters. Sleep matters. Mental health matters. And sustainable progress is usually more effective than extreme bursts of effort followed by exhaustion. I think one of the healthiest approaches is to stop viewing success as something dramatic. Instead, we can think of it as something gradual, something built through repetition, patience, and consistency. Small actions repeated over time can create remarkable results. This doesn't mean motivation is unimportant. Motivation can be incredibly valuable. It often helps us begin. It gives us vision and enthusiasm. But the discipline is usually what helps us continue. And perhaps the goal is not choosing one over the other. Perhaps the healthiest approach is learning how to use motivation wisely while also building systems and habits that support consistency. For example, instead of waiting until you feel motivated to study, you create a routine. Instead of relying on sudden inspiration to exercise, you schedule regularly movement into your week and you make it non-negotiable. Instead of expecting perfection, you focus on steady improvement. And over time, those small actions begin to shape identity. You stop thinking, I'm trying to learn English, and you begin thinking, I'm someone who studies consistently. That shift can be incredibly powerful. Before we finish today, I want to leave you with one final thought. Progress is rarely linear. There will be seasons where you feel highly motivated and productive. There will also be seasons where progress feels slower and more difficult. That's normal. The important thing is not perfection. The important thing is continuing. Even small steps matter. As always, thank you for joining me on Coastal Conversations. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and remember that lasting progress is often built quietly, one consistent step at a time.